Good morning. Welcome to Portsmouth This Week. This is Gary Gump. This is our first show for 2015, and our guest today is John Klimm, our Town Administrator.
Hello.
Welcome, John. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You've announced that you're going to be leaving Portsmouth soon.
Yes.
3 years after coming here. Seems a little bit just like yesterday that you showed up here, you know. But in any event, this morning I think be a great opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things that have occurred over the past 3 years. Just maybe to start out, what was it that attracted you in the first place to Portsmouth?
Well, thank you for having me, Gary, to start with. It's an interesting question because I was not interested in seeking employment at the time that the job opened up. And I attribute it to 3 or 4 things. The town council hired a very aggressive executive search firm. And that's how I learned about the position. I wasn't looking for a job, certainly not in New England. And so that's how the ball started rolling by the actions of a former town council in their decision to use an executive search firm. So when the contact was made, I really didn't know much at all about Portsmouth, Rhode Island, having spent almost the entirety of my life in Massachusetts. So I started taking a look at it. My wife and I took the time on a Sunday to visit. And I have to say that both of us liked what we saw. We're both native Cape Codders. And Portsmouth in many ways reminded us of Cape Cod back in the 40s and 50s, where the proximity to the water is obvious, but back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, there was still more than a few farms and open space.
Right. Yeah.
And so and both of us have lamented the fact that the communities on Cape Cod have allowed those to disappear. But I think that was it. And the last thing was that when I looked more into this, I was intrigued by the fact that we had a town council at the time that made it very, very clear that they were looking for a change agent, someone that really wanted to come in and to take the community to the next level. So what initially was a refusal on my part to even look at a possibility of going to Rhode Island turned into intrigue on my part. And I certainly am glad that I did that.
Yeah, well, we're glad you came. That's for sure. And I hope that our current council, if we haven't already chosen a firm to go out to recruit for your replacement, I hope they pick some company that's as tenacious about getting us a good sample of candidates, and we end up maybe with someone that's as much fun to work with as you've been.
Well, I appreciate that. Much to their credit, the town council immediately decided to utilize the services of an executive search firm again. They put it out to bid, and my understanding is they got 5 or 6 bids, and I think they'll be deciding that next week. So
that's kind of a side question, but so the process is we first have to select a recruiting outfit,
right,
and then they have to go out and make a recruiting effort and bring back the candidates, some list of candidates to council. Council goes through that process, and well, we'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
That's we can. The question would be what the time frame is, and we can talk about that a little bit more later on. So you came over, you interviewed with council, you and your wife drove around, you spent some time thinking about everything, and took the plunge. So when you finally got here, when you got in and got behind the desk and looked around to behold what you had, what did you find?
Well, we were both very pleasantly pleased at what awaited us. I found a community that values a lot of the things that we care deeply about, having a safe community, having a quality educational system, and the like. I was delighted at the level of citizen engagement, even though some of that was citizens saying that they had concerns about the town, that they even were around raising concerns was a positive. And quite frankly, I know that I will forever be grateful that there were a group of folks that kind of welcomed me and in some ways adopted my wife and I here to town. It's never easy to not only go into a new community but another state.
Yeah.
And there was obviously a very large learning curve, and I was delighted to find citizens who took the time to be helpful.
Yeah.
It really made a huge difference. When I started on the 13th of February, 2012, we only had about a month or two to put the budget together.
Yeah.
So we were really under the gun to get a few things done. And that can be a dangerous time because you don't want to act too quickly without learning what you need to learn about the community. So it was kind of a precarious position that we were in. But I think that we were successful because of a very responsive and helpful town council and citizens that just came out of the woodwork to help.
So you had a lot of people, or in your opinion, do you have quite a few people, volunteers that just showed up at the door and said, "Hey, I'm here to help. What can I do?"
Not only that, even folks that came forward with complaints or concerns or criticisms, it wasn't a matter of them just tossing a bomb into town hall and then leaving. To a person, they were raising concerns and willing to help solve the issues. And I know that isn't always the case in communities, and so I think I was very, very fortunate that was the case.
So after you were here, I suppose, for a little bit, or perhaps as you were coming in, you got more engaged and involved with council. I'm sure they had an agenda of items that they particularly wanted to get accomplished. So they provided you with this kind of an open-ended list, or a 2-year, or was it like a kind of a iterative thing, get this accomplished in this and this, or was it just a broad picture and John, it's your decision, you decide what you want to tackle?
No,
first?
They didn't say that. I mean, I was blessed with a council at the time. Joe Robichaud was the president. I was blessed with a council that was very clear in terms of what their expectations were. There was a laundry list, a long-range laundry list, but very specifically they wanted, there were some real financial concerns about the direction that the community was heading, and they wanted me to address some very specific financial issues. For example, issue of pension, the need for pension reform. That was really what is called a budget buster in the local budget, and it was just utterly out of control. They wanted me to assess a variety of management and financial systems that needed to be put into place, and so we were able to go to work on those right away. They knew that, for example, all the union contracts were up, and they wanted to address the concerns that are associated with those.
When you were looking at issues such as pensions and budgets and things of that nature, did it become pretty obvious that some of those things were going to be like a 1, 2, 3 year project, and enough so that you could go back at some point to council and say, I know these are the goals that you have, and here's my recommendations, here's what's going to happen, and then to implement that over time?
Yeah, but I give the town council all the credit in the world because they insisted on a level of accountability that was actually ultimately helpful to me.
Right.
We knew we were financially bleeding with a pension system where unfortunate prior decisions were made over the years that we couldn't fund. And we were able to over a period of time, through the extraordinary commitment of our employees to not hide from a problem, but confront it and be part of the solution. Every union now in the town, but for the police department, have accepted major pension reform. And so we took something that was a huge crisis in town and turned it around and have implemented over several years major pension reform that wouldn't have happened without the leadership of the council, and it certainly wouldn't have happened without the understanding of our town employees. The whole issue of financial liability, though, we were bleeding We were expending our fund balance. We were refusing
our emergency fund.
Our emergency fund.
Right.
We were blowing through that. We hadn't made decisions in terms of the infrastructure that were ultimately would have put us in a real crisis situation. We've turned that around, and over the span of time with two very different, but I believe very responsible town councils, we've taken this town from being in a perilous financial condition to being one of two communities in Rhode Island ever to receive a AAA bond rating.
Right.
Very few Rhode Island communities still to this day haven't addressed the issue of pension reform. But for one more department, we've completed that. That wouldn't happen unless the councils were very clear in terms of what their goals were, and understanding that to accomplish what we need to accomplish, they'd have to give us the latitude to get the job done. The other issue that I haven't mentioned, which isn't management or finance, it's the relationship between the town hall and the community, which was a little odd to me because this is not a large town.
Right.
But for a variety of reasons, we really don't have our own newspaper singularly addressing Portsmouth issues, although we have two great newspapers, the Newport Daily News and the Portsmouth Times. There was no mechanism really in place to outreach to the community, and that was like the third major issue the council wanted me to address, and that is how we disseminate information and how we communicate with our community, our residents. But I saw when I got here, we didn't have an emergency communication system,
right.
And now we have Code Red. We weren't using our website efficiently, and we didn't really have a great website to begin with, which has changed. The town council supported the idea of doing a regular community survey. So we're actually asking the residents how they feel about things,
right.
and not assuming that we know, and that has turned out well. And of course, through the efforts of an unbelievable group of volunteers, we started a TV program, and now we're in our, what is it, 100 and something?
Oh, well, more than 120.
Yeah, that in itself is a huge accomplishment.
It really is. I think it's a great step forward in terms of getting information out. I'm sure you were a part of our Portsmouth 375 effort a year and a half or so ago, and you know the frustration we had in trying to communicate events to the town. It was just extremely difficult. I think we've evolved quite a bit since then.
The other thing that comes to mind is that we were approaching I didn't know this at the time when I started, but soon thereafter I found out that we were approaching our 375th anniversary, and what was accomplished there. And I can compare it, believe it or not, in my hometown. They went through the 375th anniversary this year. Barnstable. Yeah. It's a much larger community. And I got to tell you, they could not hold a candle to the efforts that took place in Little Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I'm so proud of the work that we didn't have a budget. It was all volunteer, but it was just, in many ways, Portsmouth reminds me of the little train that could, or whatever the story is. We had a group of volunteers that just wouldn't look back, just kept going forward, and when we mentioned one event, there was another event, and going to England and bringing back the mayor, and all of the events, the event at the Glen Manor, and the polar plunges, and all of the picnics that we had, and the variety of events. We can really be proud of that effort. One of the goals there was to bring the community together.
I was just going to amplify that.
And maybe get rid of some of the animosity, partisanship, and that existed.
I think we instilled a little bit more pride in our town.
I agree.
I think that worked out pretty well. So, just kind of thinking about where we are today as a community versus where we were when you came in, and your experience over the last 3 years, starting from, I think a lot of us sensed that we were a little bit behind the eight ball as a community in terms of what everybody else was doing across the state and the country. How does Portsmouth compare to all the other communities here that in Rhode Island? I know you haven't had 100% exposure to everything. You've only been there 3 years, but in general, your sense that we're well positioned to compared to the other communities in terms of all the services and all the other things that we do?
I really do, in many areas. Certainly the AAA bond rating speaks for itself. The management practices that we've implemented are as good as any of the other communities. One area that we haven't talked about yet, which is significant, is our staff.
Right.
And one of the additional challenges that we had was to build the best staff possible, so that our hard-earned tax dollars are spent wisely and efficiently. And in the period of 3 years, I will be leaving Portsmouth as proud as I could be and confident as I could be that our staff is second to none.
Yeah.
And I just look at every department head, and I look at all of our staff, for so long in Portsmouth. That's the other thing, though, when you compare Portsmouth to other communities of comparable size, and I'm not talking about the schools,
right,
which I'm not really familiar with, I'm just talking about the municipal
sure,
operation. It's very clear that for whatever reason, for years and years and years, taxpayers put more money on the school side than the municipal side. And I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, that's just the way it was. And so when you look at the municipal operation, it's really incredible that we've accomplished what we've accomplished, because in any department you choose to select, we are still very much behind the 8 ball in comparison to like communities in Rhode Island and in New England and nationally. So when you look at our planner, I mean, you're looking at our planning department when you look at our planner.
So we're
when you
behind
look at
in
our
terms
public
of
works
staff.
staff, absolutely.
Yeah,
When you look at our
right,
public works staff, there's clear justification to have had 5, 6, 7, 8 more people to do the work that they're doing, police and fire.
right,
And so there's that challenge as well, that we have a historic frugality, I guess it was, on the part of decision makers, not to fund our various departments. So I mean there's that reality as well.
Yeah, one of the things that through your leadership and a lot of effort by others we've accomplished is this agreement with the state, with the DEM on
Yes.
the wastewater management
Yeah.
project. And talk about that just for a moment. It seems to me one of the things that has to have helped would be the impression or the considerations have some impact on either residential or commercial newcomers to town. Do I come to Portsmouth or not? Is this a sword hanging over the head of the town or what?
Right.
And it seems like this resolution that is completed or in the process of completion,
I guess
that's
that's
a huge help.
Part of the frustration of the last 3 years was that we don't have the staff to really do things right.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is that we had some major issues that took an inordinate amount of time to deal with. When I came on, I wasn't even familiar with the lengthy conflict between the town of Portsmouth and the state, DEM, that needed to be resolved. When I came aboard 3 years ago, I knew we had a wind turbine, but it was a source of incredible community pride, and really hadn't thought much about the fact that maybe it'll break down and maybe it will present some challenges or whatever. So when I look back at the last 3 years as well, I do so with some pride that even when adversity was really thrown at this little community, we're able to address the issues responsibly, timely, and in a fashion that I think will serve the taxpayers well in the long run. Take the turbine, for example. The partnership with the private sector, I think, was the perfect solution. It took a while to get there, and that issue, as you know, Gary, was very, very complex. But I'm proud of the work that Gary Crosby and the town council and others did to get us there. The same with the agreement, the recent agreement with the state over the whole notice of violation issue and deals with sewer. We were able to deal with that as well. So not only were we able to accomplish the list of goals and objectives that were put on the table the day I walked into town hall, we were thrown some obstacles.
Major.
Yeah, that really took a lot of our time. But we were able to get around that as well.
And do you feel, I don't know that it was a goal or an objective that you got from council as a charge when you first came on board, but do you feel like we've I mean, you mentioned before that as a community we've made a huge investment in our schools, and rightfully so. We've got great schools. Do you feel that the town and the school department are kind of coming together more than, I mean, in other communities, you sometimes get a sense there's a little bit more sharing and cooperation and back and forth.
No, in a lot of other communities there is outright hatred, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
And I give credit to individual school committee members and town councilors that just refuse to allow that environment to exist. And that's not an easy thing to do, because at the end of the day, the conflict in other communities is about fighting for scarce resources. And unfortunately, people on either side think that the answer is to throw the other side under the bus, and allow for conflict to exist. And that hasn't been the case in Portsmouth. So I think that has served us well.
Yeah. We've come a long ways, obviously, as we've just talked about. It's an incredible list of accomplishments. You know, there was, in a couple of recent newspaper articles, one of them a summary of the year in for the previous year, and another one, I think you gave an interview when you were announcing your departure. So there's a kind of a broad list of accomplishments that we've made. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the things that remain to be done.
Well, I think the greatest challenges that the town continues to face is, first and foremost, it was terrific news to get the AAA bond rating, but now you have to keep it. And like anything else, it's so easy to slip back and to give up. It takes much more discipline to make the tough decisions. And I certainly hope that in C, the greatest challenge is to continue our work. We should have 16%, not 8% in fund balance. There are financial policies that Jim Lathrop, and I think he was a godsend in coming on with the other staff, and some of the work that he's done is terrific, but there's so much more work that needs to be done. One of the things that I mentioned earlier on about why I was so attracted to Portsmouth is the quality of life. And we're in the process of rewriting the comprehensive plan. It's absolutely essential that residents, taxpayers, and our staff and our committees all join hands and put a document together that we can be proud of, because I know, unfortunately, I know what can happen to a community if they don't cherish the unique aspects that make this town special. And especially in the area of economic development, we're all supportive of economic development. We hear that a lot. We want the right type of economic development. And I thought something early on in my tenure, and I am as strong as in my belief today as I was then, that there's a tourism industry out there that celebrates Portsmouth's uniqueness. In the sense of trying to foster a bed and breakfasts and the tourism industry. I think we assume that because Newport is Newport, that they have a lock on the tourism industry, and I'm hopeful that as time goes on, that we don't think that the answer is to make Portsmouth like every other community, but to celebrate its uniqueness and foster that for economic development.
Well, as much as we like to have your leadership here to help us do that, you know, I guess that's not going to happen. But just to touch on your concern about, you know, and the question about what remains to be done, it seems to me, maybe you could talk about it just for a moment. I think you've been instrumental in implementing like a 5-year planning cycle.
Yes.
And that's a tool we didn't have in the past, I think, and that just, excuse me, that should be a big help in trying to look forward and maintain a lot of that momentum and look for obstacles along the way.
Well, we didn't even have a capital plan.
Right.
We didn't have a roads program, for example, as you're well aware. And we were able to draft a program together that spends $1 million a year on roads, which is just the minimum amount to get us back to where we need to go. But we were able to do it. We're also working with the schools on a long-range capital plan. We have needs on our buildings. We were just deferring all of that, which is catastrophic if it goes on for too long.
Absolutely.
And so there are a lot of successes there thanks to our town council and school committee.
And I know that, again, through your efforts, we've now got an annual a report, a town annual report.
Yes.
And I think the most recent one is either out or due out soon. And I confess that I don't recall sitting here at the moment. Do we talk about the long-range plans and things at the tail end of that report? Do we?
We do. There's actually
great,
there's a section at the end that talks about that. But a lot of what I have suggested comes from my experience.
Right.
And it just happens to be that in Massachusetts there's a state law that says every town has to. And I used to cherish the opportunity in my hometown to be able to go into town hall and look at an annual report from the 1700s. And unfortunately we'll never have that in Portsmouth. But if we start and do it every year, before you know it, in 100 years they can look back.
You come back for the 400th anniversary, you can check out the plans and see how it's going, yeah. So one of the things we talked very briefly about earlier when we were talking about how you happened to come to our town and were selected was the process of bringing on the new town administrator. And we mentioned that they're right now just picking the firm that'll do the search. So do you have a kind of a ballpark for when they might bring on a new
yes, the town council advertised. I think we'll be making a selection this coming week
of the
search
firm. Right.
They're going to need a minimum of 30 days to outreach, to get the advertisement out there, and then go through a process that's going to take 60 to 90 days to evaluate and to go through the whole process locally, leading up to the actual selection.
So you know, if you were to kind of put a guesstimate on that, would you say, for instance, that sometime in the May, June time frame?
I would think so. I think that's
so we're going to have your services.
Well, I've offered to stay as long as I can, and my goal in doing that is just to try to make the transition as seamless as possible.
Yeah, that's great.
As we end, I can't say enough about our employees. Come to work day in and day out and do an incredible job. And the counselors, you know, it's tough being a politician these days, but the counselors that I've met, that I've had the honor of working with, starting with Joe Robichaux and Paul Casson and Liz Pedro and all of the other counselors in the first council, and then the Jim Seveny council with Molly McGee and Mike Buttermeyer and John Blaze, and I know I'm going to forget a few, but I hope residents understand the sacrifices those folks make and the good job that they do. They're really, I've seen a lot of councils, and we've been blessed in Portsmouth.
I think because of a lot of your efforts, we recognize a lot more of that now. You know, so and things are coming to a close here. But I have to ask, we're moving into 2015. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
I actually do. I am absolutely committed never to jump in the ocean on January 1st in New England again. I've done it twice, and that's too many times.
Well, okay, so we can.
I can live up to that, to the resolution too.
I think I agree with you. You know, I mean,
if I do it again,
as a matter of fact, I think I went in with you.
Yeah, I think you did too.
So I think we can both check that off our bucket list, right?
I'm not going to say I'm not going to go swimming again in January, but it might be in Florida or the Caribbean or something.
Well, I think you know, it's been a fun time here. I mean, a lot of us, myself and a lot of our colleagues that we volunteer here, we really enjoyed working with you, and it's just been a great 3 years. You know, we're looking forward to another 3 years, but we wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you. I've made friendships that I hope I'll have for my lifetime.
And we hope that at some point you come back and come spend a part of the summer or something with us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. And Portsmouth This Week, stay tuned for next week. See you then. Bye.